Rich and poor nations are divided on climate change. To talk about that, I spoke with Rachel Cleetus from the Union of Concerned Scientists. She's their lead economist and manager of their climate and energy program.
So, a very important part of these international climate negotiations is commitments that developed countries have made to help poorer countries make a transition to cleaner energy. So, as part of the agreement that we got out of the Copenhagen climate talks, the developed countries had committed to raising at least 100 billion a year by 2020 in climate finance to help developing countries make a green energy transition. We still have some ways to go on that pledge being delivered on. And there's also a lot of interest in some of the less developed countries in terms of what that finance is going to look like post 2020. That's going to be really important. It's a key sticking point, and it's an issue that is going to make the Paris talks complicated. This finance is necessary to help countries around the world make this transition, the transition that's already underway in the US. Now, as far as China and India, the interesting thing that we're seeing in both these countries is there is a lot of interest in transitioning away from fossil-fired power, particularly coal-fired power, because of the incredible public health toll it's taking in these countries. So I'm sure many of your listeners are very familiar with the fact that China, cities like Beijing, cities like New Delhi, routinely are in the news about their poor air quality. There's a lot of public health burden in terms of asthma and other kinds of respiratory diseases. And there's a lot of interest from the citizens in these countries in seeing their air get cleaner. And this transition away from fossil fuels towards cleaner forms of energy will also create this huge public health boon for these countries in the nearer term, and it will help address the climate challenge.
You brought up Copenhagen. We know about Kyoto. How will Paris differ from these earlier sessions?
What's really different about Paris is the groundwork that's been laid ahead of time. It's very difficult in the hothouse of these 2-week negotiations to reach major commitments. What happens is if you've laid the groundwork ahead of time, as has happened in the case of Paris, with countries announcing commitments ahead of time in terms of their actions to tackle climate change, it allows a real atmosphere of momentum. It allows a level of ambition that we perhaps didn't see going into Copenhagen. But it's very important to remember that Paris is a moment in time. It's a very important moment, but we have a lot of hard work coming out of Paris and beyond. And that's the work of implementing whatever framework agreement we get in Paris. And it's the work of ratcheting up the ambition in what we get coming out of Paris. We know that going into Paris, the commitments that countries have already made are not enough to keep us on a pathway of below 2 degrees C temperature increase. We've got to do more. And so we need to lock in a framework that ratchets up ambition over time. That's a critical piece of success in Paris. All of the countries that are going in are aware of this. The information is well laid out, the science is well laid out, and the impacts are already being felt very clearly around the world already. So I think there's a lot of interest, there's a lot of momentum, there's a very positive atmosphere, but we need our political leaders to step up and rise to the challenge that's been put in front of us as countries around the world. And that's what we're all hoping will come out of Paris.
Rachel, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much.